All right, welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show. Super excited to be with you here on this wonderful Tuesday, Schlegs. Always juiced up. We got our guy, Bill Bender, going to be joining us today. So very nervous about your guy, Mr. William Bender. But it is a Tuesday. It's Schlegs. It's September.
Richard Magnum Bender.
It's the last Tuesday. It's the last day of September. Then we're on to October. And as we know, after October comes November. November is for contenders. So we have 31 more days now. The Buckeyes will be playing Minnesota, then Illinois. Who do they have after Illinois? I don't know. I know
it's a road game. It's a road game.
It's a road game. Then they have a bye. Then they have Penn State. That's probably where we're at right now with this, with everything. So I don't know. That's where we're at.
It's okay. It's okay. We got a big slate of games going down this week. It's going to be frothy. It's going to be juicy. Ohio State, Minnesota. I'm excited for it. But to your point, Bob, they're at Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, that's right. Game that looked like it was going to be kind of difficult. I don't know. Wisconsin's struggling mightily. So we've got that going. We're going to take a look back at the weekend of college football and see a little bit with that with our guy, Bill Bender, look backward and then also look forward to some of the coming games this week, some of the stuff that happened there. We really didn't talk yesterday a whole bunch, Schlegs, about some of the different things that happened. We got some announcements of where the future games will be. Minnesota is going to be a night game. We'll talk about the Illinois game of when that's going to be. That was coming out. But there was some big stuff that happened across the world of college football. And I want to start with this because we're going to get to this stuff with Bill as well. The Dan Lanning post-game quote, Schlegs. I don't know if you saw this after.
Of course I saw it. I put it in the Doomajig.
I don't know who put stuff in the Doomajig.
I put it in the Doomajig.
Yeah. But yes. Put
it on.
If you can, throw that up there, Pat. Got a lot of things going on today. So, but Dan Lanning very passionate after the Penn State game. They got a big win, big road win, big game. James faltered again in double overtime. It was interesting because he was talking about, and we'll get to this, kind of the whole gamut of when we start talking about the Dan Lanning quote. Pat, if we could throw that, toss that up there, and what that ultimately looks like. Gosh, I'm getting all these texts coming through. But super pumped after the game. So Dan Lanning and James Franklin, two of these teams, like both of them looked like coming in a win. Like Dan Lanning has had some big wins, hasn't had anything like big substantively won in the playoff yet. He won the Big Ten last year, the number one seed. James Franklin made some noise in the playoff, ultimately fell just a tad shy of getting to the national championship with a pick against Notre Dame at the end of the game by Drew Aller. And so both of these guys kind of needed this win. I felt like James Franklin probably needed it a little more because he has Ohio State coming up. Oregon, I believe, just has USC and Indiana, which Indiana is better. If we could toss up his thoughts of how they were going to win this game. And this is kind of a pretty good summation of when you go into these big games, how you're going to try and get it done.
I've ever been a part of. And regardless of who won that game, just unbelievable back and forth. I mean, Penn State is a damn good football team. They figured out some stuff there against us at the end. I mean, every series mattered. I think we scored 2 touchdowns in the second half. They scored 3. Just unbelievable back and forth. I guess we had 4 touchdowns second half. You start counting overtime, right? Overtime was a different animal. But these guys, they fought. And we just talked all week. It's about getting a cut. Right, and this death by 1,000 cuts. We just had to get another cut, and eventually that cut was going to be a jugular, and that last interception was a jugular. I think
that's it.
The last cut was the jugular. So like, keep 1,000 cuts, keep digging. So we did that over James Franklin. Pat, I highlighted another one because James Franklin's sitting in that same post-game presser, and it's a different vibe, Schlegs, after you lose the game, of that you're trying to figure out, and you're sitting there, it's somber, it doesn't exactly feel all that good. And you're trying to frame it of understanding the gravity of what happened, but not letting that single game or the handful of games also define you. And I thought James Franklin did a pretty good job of talking to this.
whether it's Greg Kincaid or Chris or other people will send me cut ups or examples of how maybe other coaches and other people handle some of these questions. And I think that perspective is good. Some of the way those things are handled at other places, I don't think would go over very well here. If I got up in a press conference and said some things that I've seen other people say, I don't think that would go over very well. So I try to be as respectful as I can. I try to answer the tough questions you guys give. It's not always easy to do. I wouldn't say I enjoy this whatsoever. But I also understand you guys got a job to do, and these tough questions are going to come. I will also say that I'm not going to allow one loss to define our season, and I'm not going to allow a few losses to define my career and what we have done here at Penn State. Because although I don't think a lot of people spend a ton of time on what we have done over our 12 years here, and I get it, nobody wants to hear this right now, there's a ton of positives.
Yep. Ton of positives. So, yeah. There's a couple of things that are true there, Schlegs. There's the fact that for one loss shouldn't define a season. Some losses shouldn't define the entirety of your career. But then you start looking at, you're at Penn State. There is an expectation there. Now, nobody's won anything there since the 80s of substance. And so he's battling that and their desire to get back. And he's had them close, but eventually you got to get over the hump. And if they feel like if you get over the hump at the end of the season, it's a little different now because the regular season, it's not that it has been it's not that the regular season has been diminished to a degree. I would just say the losses maybe aren't as impactful. And so emotionally for the fans, yes, it matters, but you can still go achieve your ultimate goal of winning a national championship. Hell, they can still win a Big Ten championship just with one regular season loss. So that is all there too. But people don't necessarily want to hear that in the immediacy of the moment. That's what I love about college football is that raw emotion.
Yeah. Go ahead, put up the next one. And this is where he was alluding to, and that was this record of, 1-15 versus top 5, 4-21 versus top 10. And that's what there's
30 versus top 25, which top 25 Schlegs, Penn State's probably going to be favored in most of those because generally they're in the top 10 or 12. And they might be playing 20th ranked Iowa or, something like that. And then 4-17 against Michigan and Ohio State, which is also pretty bumpy.
Yeah, really bumpy. And that's what this is alluding to from a fan base perspective. And I totally get it. I want to go back to, and I thought he answered that question clear and concise, probably didn't necessarily answer the question, but at least created his own narrative as to I'm going to focus on the positive, and we still have a long season to go. Now, I'm mistaken. Last year in 2024, Ohio State goes on the road. Now, granted, this was at home, but they go on the road. They lose to the number 3 team at that time, Oregon, by 1 point. And everybody thought the world was coming down, and it wasn't. They were able to win a national championship, and they peaked at the right time. I want to go back to this day and age in college football and painting a narrative. And this is one thing that I thought that Urban did a really good job. And when I heard Dan Lanning, it's funny too, because after the game, I texted their D coordinator. I said, dude's playing fast and violent, great game, great depth by the safety on that pick. And I just like coaching nuggets, right? Just like when I'm talking tackling, but it's the same thing that we always preach to when you're playing zone, depth, vision, break, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. And they knew what they were going to run, but he knew what he had to do. He had to get depth first to allow him to have vision, to be able to break on the football. And that's why he made the play. That's coaching. But it was that illustration, that mental picture of 1,000 cuts. Like you don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know when the cut that matters the most is going to take part. I just got to keep cutting. And I just remember when we played Oregon in the national championship game, and their thing was the 16. And Urban literally had pictures of a football blowing up the number 16. And that's what they wanted to do. So that's what we had to do. And that was the emphasis. It was just this visualization, said that terrible, of what you had to do to win this game. And for them, it was just keep cut, just a cut, just a cut, just a cut. However that looked when you're one-on-ones. In today's day and age of being able to coach and find what can move the needle and continue to gather the focus of your team with all of the other distractions that are around you, whether it's NIL, whether it's social media, playing time, et cetera, thought that was really good. And his dudes absolutely bought in on that, and they won the football game.
And there you go. And that was a big win, Schlegs, and he got it done. And so that's the mentality you have to take when you get into situations like that. And how do you get over that hump? And the reality is people want to see you successful among your peers. That's the expectation of schools at big-time programs. And your peers may not just be everybody in the conference, but the elite teams in the conference. You know, and in the Big Ten, like you're looking, it was Ohio State and Michigan for Penn State. And now you're probably going to factor in Oregon in there, maybe USC when they're playing well, but that's what it is. And, you know, it can always be worse. Like James Franklin gets them to be really good every year, just has not been able to get over the hump yet. So we'll see what ultimately happens, see if they have a bounce back. They play Ohio State here at the end of the month, about 30 days. And I believe they play Indiana, I think, immediately after Ohio State. So they've got themselves a tough little setup. And Ohio State has a bye week heading into that game. So we'll see how all that shakes down. But we'll break down that game. Some of the coaching firings.
Yeah.
Some of the other huge games. Who is good in college football right now? What does the landscape look like? How does this match up historically? We'll cover all that with our guy, Bill Bender, as he joins the program here in a minute. But first, FanDuel's got an offer you don't want to miss this NFL season. New customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet $5, and if it wins, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. You can build parlays, player props, ride the live lines, whatever your style is. FanDuel, they've got you covered. NFL season, well, let's hear it. The only question is, are you ready? Visit FanDuel.com/bigplay to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Must be 21 older and present in Kansas, in affiliation with the Kansas Stars Casino, or 18 older and present in DC, Kentucky, or Wyoming. First online real money wager, only $5 per first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 or 24/7 support in Massachusetts or 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Bill Bender coming up next.
Creative, experience, results. That's what drives growth. That's what builds brands. That's Lake Spur Marketing, a full-service agency built on trust, strategy, and performance, not fluff. From bold strategies to flawless execution, every campaign is rooted in smart planning and driven by clear goals. We don't chase clicks. We build partnerships. We show up, dig in, and deliver every single time. Lake Spur Marketing. The proof is in our partners.
All right, our guy Bill Bender of the Sporting News is here.
Let's go.
Twitter at Bill Bender 92.
Richard.
Doing a great job breaking down everything. And Bill, you're over in Happy Valley. We talked a lot about that Penn State Oregon game. Let's start with that as to the whole scene and kind of what your thoughts were about the entirety of that game.
I'll start with the scene itself. And I was thinking about this Sunday night after watching the Packers and Dallas tie, which we don't need to talk about. But, you talk about emotions in a stadium. There's big game emotions. And I go back to Ohio State, Michigan last year. We talked about the tension in the stadium, and I think it's a different emotion in Penn State. The scene itself is amazing. It's loud. I know you guys know that, how loud and how tough it is to play there because of that noise. I think it honestly, like Dan Lanning said, cost Oregon maybe a touchdown in this game. But on the other side, there's a frustration. When James Franklin opted to punt in Oregon territory, you could hear the boos. You could hear them later when they went down 14, and then in the bowels of the stadium as fans filed out. And I feel for them in some ways because you can tell how bad they want to win these games. But as soon as Drew Aller threw that interception to Dylan Thieneman, it was like a balloon popped. And then it was like, how long is it going to take to get out of the traffic in this stadium? It was a wild scene, a great game, and honestly a huge statement for Oregon.
I got one I'm typing in the chat, and I think I probably misspelled some things. But, when you look at this, Penn State came in, national championship contender. So did Clemson. Drew Aller. We discussed some of his struggles, 50% completion, 166 average. You look at this game, and people are like, dude, what about Singleton? Like, do they still have it? Yeah, Singleton and Allen were there. They couldn't run the football effectively. Then you have to put in your hands of your quarterback, and I believe what I put in the chat, like he had 137 yards. So let's take this all into consideration. You're there. You understand the landscape. Is it a James Franklin issue? Is it his key performers not performing to their very best on the biggest stage? Is it a combination of all of them? Is it the weight of the expectation that they haven't done it yet? And they're 4-21 versus, top 10 teams, right? And Bob alluded to the top 25 games, 15-30. That's not very good. So what do you think really is missing there in Penn State to be consistent?
I think it's just one or two plays, honestly. Like, I can't pinpoint one thing James Franklin did wrong where you're like, that's where the game was decided, right? We talked about that punt. Well, Oregon goes up 17-3, and then Penn State showed a ton of fight. It kind of took the wheels off, let Drew Aller play, and you see guys put the lineman pushing Katron Allen. And I thought at that point, Schlegs, when they tied it at 17, I thought, okay, I'm finally going to write Penn State wins the big game story. And, give Dante Moore credit for making plays in that arena, in that stage when it was super loud to give Oregon the win. But as far as Drew Aller, I go both ways here. I understand what the struggles are in the big games. I think he's been hyped as a first-round quarterback when maybe he's a day two guy. But he's also an Ohio kid. He's also always accountable after these losses. You can sense the frustration. I do know he's a good kid, high character kid. And but you kind of feel for guys like that. When the scene in that locker room or the press conference room afterward was no different than the scene when they played Ohio State 2 years ago in Ohio Stadium and Marvin Harrison made a couple plays. I mean, it was like I almost could have copy and pasted a lot of things from that column, put it in there, and added a couple more losses. So I think that is what the frustration is at Penn State.
Absolutely. After watching that game, Bill is trying to figure out who the best teams are in college football. Is there delineation in your mind between those teams? I mean, do you think that's a 50-50 game, which is kind of how it looked outside of the probably last frantic 8 minutes where there seemed to be 4 touchdowns despite the other 50 minutes not having anything?
I think Ohio State and Oregon are the two best teams in the Big Ten. And I think there's a little bit of a cut. We'll find out more about Indiana. I know we talk about them every week. Some of us might have had Indiana 6.5 and watched Fernando Mendoza scramble into the end zone and take a safety. So we won't talk about that. But Michigan, we'll see. They've got a test at USC in 2 weeks. But I think that's that second class. And Penn State's probably the bridge. They have to play Indiana. You mentioned that. They have to play Oregon or Ohio State. They have to play at Ohio State where – it's been a long time since they've won a football game there. So what do we do with a Penn State 3-loss team? One of the things I'm doing today in between, all these shows is I'm breaking down the SEC and the Big Ten and kind of going through everybody's schedule and seeing if the chalk holds, what's your record going to be? Well, I think there's going to be 3 double-digit win teams in the Big Ten at least. And the SEC is going to be a pile up for the ages, depending on some of how these games go. And right now, believe it or not, for all the piling in I've done and everybody else, Alabama's probably the favorite to win the SEC in my opinion right now.
Wow. I want to stay in the Big Ten because it's so amazing that we see Indiana absolutely just blow the doors off of Illinois last week. Granted, it was at Indiana, but just start to finish, fast and violent, executed at a high level. Then they play Iowa, and they win 20-15. Illinois plays USC and wins that game when everybody had USC coming in there favored. This is the year for USC, et cetera, et cetera. What do you make of that, right? Where you have Alabama that's down, and all of a sudden they play a number 5 Georgia at home, and Kirby Smart's 1-7 versus Alabama. Like, how do you articulate that to the fans that any given week in the game of college football, though they're getting paid NIL money, that it's still showing up week in and week out and being consistent? And how much does that bode for the teams like in Ohio State that can go on the road and beat a very good Washington team by 18 and they just are consistent in all levels all the time?
Well, I think we're starting to cover the sport like we cover the NFL. Where you just said it, every week so many things change that what we thought we know, we don't really know. So take the NFL, for example. I think we know that Philadelphia is good and Buffalo's really good, and some other contenders are struggling a little bit. I think the Lions are very good. They've bounced back. So let's do college football now, where Ohio State, I think it's two separate answers, honestly. With the Big Ten, the travel is real. It's not just Ohio State going out and winning. It's managing the time zone travel, having Julian Sain play very efficient in his first road start, having Caden Curry look like, I'm not exaggerating. Is he the best defensive player in the country right now? If he's not, is it Arvell Reese? If he's not, is it, and I could go on and name 4 other Ohio State guys. We are on the cusp. I'm not going to do it yet, but Army has a scoring record dating back to the 1940s in total scoring defense. And I've only done it a couple times where I started to look and say, could this team break this record? There was an Alabama defense about a decade ago that I thought could do it. And that's where Ohio State's at. That defense is dominant. In the SEC, I just think so much changes every week. We've gone from LSU having an elite defense to Lane Kiffin beating them. The biggest game in the SEC this week, and I would argue, I know there was somebody in the comments asking about Florida State, Miami. I could make a strong argument the most important game this weekend is Alabama Vanderbilt, which I never dreamed I would say when I started covering college football. That is a monster game in the SEC because of Diego Pavia, because of what happened last year. And there's a little bit of the Johnny Manziel feel to it. Remember, where this is the sequel. Can he do it again?
Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see that happen. Talking about Bama, that Bama-Georgia game, Kirby kind of inexplicably going for it at the end of the game. Kicking the field goal would have tied it up. I get it. You can go for the jugular, go for the win. Scoring in the first half, not a whole lot going on in the second half by that Bama offense. The SEC, I guess my perception of it, Bill, is it's clustered to the top. There's 6 or 7 teams that I'm having a hard time really putting in order. But I don't know if any of those teams are as good as Ohio State or Oregon right now.
I agree. And I think Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss, Georgia, I could probably reel off 2 more, are Texas A&M, they haven't lost, are all very good and all very capable of winning that conference. And you guys might laugh at me, but I think Alabama might, like I said, SEC favorite right now. I still think I'm still a believer in Texas because of their defense, because I watched their defense defend Ohio State well for 4 quarters. And obviously they need Arch Manning to continue to develop into that starting role. But I really want to see what they do at Florida this weekend.
Yeah.
After a bye week. Is this the team that we should be zeroing in on with Sark and all the weapons they have on offense, that maybe they get a rematch with Ohio State down the line? But I do think Ohio State and Oregon, definite national championship contenders. Texas, Alabama, they would be the next 2. And I know we'll talk a little bit about Miami after the break. They have an opportunity to kind of push themselves in that discussion if they continue winning in the ACC.
Absolutely, Bill. Listen, we're going to take a quick break. We got some more. I had some questions about Indiana. We've got that FSU-Miami game coming up. I mean, Illinois had a great bounce back. What's going on out at Arkansas? All questions will all get answered from our guy, Bill Bender. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Export. Parents and athletes, protect what matters most with Export mouthguards, trusted by professional athletes, designed by NHL team dentists. Export mouthguards are scientifically tested to absorb those high-impact hits, protecting both your teeth and your brain. Export mouthguards feature 3 layers of advanced protection, including a patented use of carbon fiber, custom fit. They 3D print that bad boy right to your grill for more protection, better performance, max comfort, and clear communication. Focus on your game, not on your gear. Don't take chances with your safety. Visit exportguards.com/Bobby today and save 15% on your order. Export, protect what matters most. More Bill Bender, the Sporting News, coming up next.
Creative, experience, results. That's what drives growth. That's what builds brands. That's Lake Spur Marketing, a full-service agency built on trust, strategy, and performance, not fluff. From bold strategies to flawless execution, every campaign is rooted in smart planning and driven by clear goals. We don't chase clicks. We build partnerships. We show up, dig in, and deliver every single time. Lake Spur Marketing. The proof is in our partners.
All right, Bill Bender, the Sporting News, back with us and trying to figure out, we're at almost the mid-season point here of who's really good and who's not, and where we're looking at. And, Indiana undressed Illinois. Illinois ends up beating USC in a game that I thought that's how that Illinois-Indiana game would go the prior week. And Indiana codifies their win, beats a tough Iowa team in Iowa City, which is always a tough place to play. Is Indiana, Bill, are they going to knock off, one of, Penn State or an Oregon? Like, will they be the 4th team potentially getting in from the Big Ten? What do you think that distance is? And then after watching Illinois do that to USC, where, hell, they barely won, but they also fumbled twice going into the end zone. Like, they were trying to give the damn game away. Are they closing in on that conversation as well? Because I thought they were the 4th best, but I think they might be 5, but maybe not far behind.
Yeah, and it's really going to come down to, do we get like a 10-2 pile up at the end of the year with outside of Oregon and Ohio State? So there's a couple circle the game dates to me, and one is definitely Indiana Penn State, because if the Hoosiers beat Penn State, if you think the criticism and frustration of James Franklin is at a peak now, wait till that happens. And they also have to play Ohio State. I think for Indiana, I'm really interested to see what they do with Oregon. That Oregon team is good. Dan Lanning and Kurt Signetti, everybody has opinions on both of those coaches. And then the other kind of circle the game date for me is, what does Michigan do out at USC? Because if you look at the remainder of Michigan's schedule after that, if they're able to go out to the Coliseum and win and not stub their toe the rest of the year, they don't play Oregon, they don't play Penn State, they don't play Indiana, they could be theoretically 10-1 when they play Ohio State. And here's the scenario. I know we're so long away from it, but just imagine, how are we going to feel? Ohio State plays Michigan, beats them, and then the Wolverines still go to the playoff at 10-2. Like, this is the new reality of college football, where you can kind of flesh out those scenarios, and it could still be very real.
Yeah, they still have a chance. And guess what? That's why you have a playoff. You still have a chance. Your goals are still out there to win, even though you lose to your rival, fine, right? But you had to beat the other teams along the way. What's your answer to this? Is probably like a two-part banger for my guy, Richard Magnum. And I know that you can handle it. All things, Richard. 18 inches around. So Florida State gets beat by Virginia. TCU, ranked, goes to Arizona State. Arizona State completely outplayed them, still 27-24. Ole Miss beats LSU, right? Alabama beats Georgia. Tennessee almost loses to Mississippi State, should have. Not even mentioning the Arkansas one. Georgia Tech close, like ready to storm the field, go for 2 on it. They lose. A&M doesn't really look kind of dominant versus Auburn. Auburn had they all had crazy penalties, terrible. How do you look at that in college football week 5? And then that leads up to then this next one which is that Florida State-Miami game. So now Florida State just has that loss. They were number 8. They got beat. Now you got them hosting Miami this week. How do you feel about all these teams? This is multiple weeks in a row where the underdogs or the lesser-ranked teams are winning in college football.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Florida State game. I mean, I can tell you exactly what I was thinking. As a writer, you're like, now I have to pivot some content because we were all in on Miami, Florida State being this top 10 matchup for the first time in forever, and now it's not. So, I mean, that's one thing we do. And Florida State got beat up front by Virginia. They really did. They got pushed around. Virginia was able to have long drives with that running game and Chandler Morris. And I think what it says is and then TCU, Arizona State, TCU blows a 17-point lead because Sam Leavitt was cool under pressure. I mean, that's a very good Arizona State team that could still win that conference. And it's so wild is that Iowa State, one of the favorites, goes to Nippert Stadium this weekend in Cincinnati, and they're an underdog because Brendan Sorsby's playing well. So the life in the Big 12 and the ACC is a little bit different than the Big 10 and the SEC because there's going to be a lot of losses. I don't think you're going to have an unbeaten team in either conference. Maybe Miami, but they've got to beat Florida State first. And I mean, we didn't even talk about Georgia Tech nearly losing to Wake Forest.
I know.
And stopping a 2-point conversion. So it all contributes to a wild field. I enjoy it. I think it's opened up the playoff field. At the same time, when you're truly starting to zero in on who you think the national championship contenders are, you've got to be, I guess the phrase would be, above the chaos. Can you be above that? And I do have a question for you two guys, because this is something I thought Friday night. When Virginia stormed the field, one, they were out there pretty darn close to early, where it was like, man, they'll throw a flag. And then you saw a fan, I had this thought in my head, you saw a fan get in Thomas Castellano's face with his phone, with a certain finger up.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, at what point are we going to lose the field storming because athletes are being paid now? And how much restraint did it take from Thomas Castellanos? Or at what point is one of these guys going to take a swing at one of these students? And then what are we going to do? We're getting close. I love field stormings. It's part of college football, but you can kind of see these getting closer to coming.
Well, my thing is always they need to try to issue stuff out to the students. And I know that they've been drinking and, you know, everything else, and they're young and immature. But I was like, I love field storming, court storming. I think it's one of the things that's unique to the college game and the connectivity you have with the team and the players. But celebrate your guys. Like, if you're going out there to taunt somebody else, like, dude, you lose all protections under the law if you're going to get into somebody's face. There's a reason why, Bill, you cover these games. There's a cooling off period for media members to go in after the game to allow them to kind of decompress. You're hitting a guy in his most emotional and vulnerable moment, the immediacy after a tough, devastating loss. So that's really tough. And so I always try to tell people, just go celebrate with your guys, because I think it's awesome. And I've been a part of it on both sides, where people storm in when you lose. And you're like, all right, just you keep walking, you push through the crowd and mass of humanity, and it's all good. And it's the best thing ever when you win. So it's just trying to balance that, because I don't disagree with you, Bill. I don't want to go away, but if people keep acting like that, I don't know if you're going to be able to keep it. How do you square? You mentioned that Florida State, they got beat up front. I mean, they beat up Alabama up front.
Yeah.
Then they can't handle Virginia. And I think Virginia is a good team. But how do you square those things when you see this stuff that happens, you know, with a month apart, that doesn't seem to make good sense?
Yeah, in Alabama, I talked to Greg McElroy last week, and he said it wasn't an excuse, but he said he really believes Alabama just got impacted by the humidity, the heat, and all of those things in that game, that they weren't loafing, that they, you know, and he brought up an interesting point that I thought when he was at Alabama and several other Alabama years, they typically would open their season in an air-conditioned environment in a big game. There was something to that on some level. I'm thinking if Alabama and Florida State ran it back tomorrow, who are you taking? You're probably taking the Crimson Tide and just chalking it up to a mulligan. But as he said, it wasn't an excuse. We all have to deal with the elements. It's going to get colder up here, obviously, and windier, maybe. I don't know. Outside, it doesn't feel very cold. But, you know, in the SEC, it'll cool off too. So that's kind of the explanation I can give you. But for Florida State, there was a couple things in that game. Up front, we mentioned, had some chances down the field. And I'll tell you what, the review on the Deuce Robinson catch where he bobbled it like 3 times.
Yeah.
Incredible by the ACC to let us in on that process, because they're literally talking through it as I'm watching it. And I'm like, yeah, that's incomplete. And they're correct. So good on them.
All right. We know we got Miami, Florida State next week. So excited to ultimately watch that. And the ACC, I'm keeping a close eye on. Big 12, keeping a really close eye on. Notre Dame already having 2 losses. They just dismissed Sam Pittman by taking them behind the woodshed. That Notre Dame defense looks to be getting better. What do you think by watching how they played against a pretty talented offensive Arkansas team? Like, do you feel better about their ability to get in now? And I know their odds, I think, just got cut in half basically for them to get in. Think there's a better likelihood with all this other chaos going on?
Well, I mean, Notre Dame, they're going to have some opportunities here. And, they've got to take care of business against the rest of their schedule. But a 10-2 Notre Dame team becomes much more interesting. And, I'm trying to think of it this way. If you're rooting for Notre Dame, are you rooting for Texas A&M to lose or win? Are you rooting for – I think you're rooting for Miami to win the ACC and dominate, because then that doesn't look bad at all. With A&M, I think you're kind of rooting for them to unfortunately lose and get out of the way, because that could be a situation. What do we do at the end of the year if A&M's 10-2 and Notre Dame's 10-2? You have to honor the head-to-head. So that's kind of how I would split the difference, but their offense definitely looks better. Arkansas found out, and what they continue to find out is it's really hard to live in that middle class if you don't have the resources in the SEC. I think Rhett Lashley or Dan Mullen might be the names to watch in that coaching search. We'll see how Bobby Petrino does when the memes stop. We know the history. We know what happened the first time around. I get that, but he's always been a pretty good play caller. So we'll see what he does with Taylor Green over the next several weeks against a tough schedule.
Thank you so much, Bill. We appreciate it. Great conversation as always. Look forward to catching up with you next week and watching another great weekend of college football.
Hey, you guys are the best. Thanks so much for having me. Talk to you next week.
See you, bro.
Our guy, Bill Bender, the Sporting News. Give him a follow at Bill Bender 92 on X. All right, Schlegs, our friends over at Backer, the elite fan gear, the elite apparel that you're going to find. I've got the stuff. I've got the coats, the jackets. You're going to need them here before too long. bckr.com, bckr.com. They've got all the great features you're looking for. They've got a variety of teams that keep expanding their arsenal. Buckeye stuff is the way to go, though. But use promo code all caps BOBBY at checkout for free expedited shipping. Again, that's Backer, BCKR. The wind, the rain, the cold. They've got you covered. They've got hats too. Go check them out. All right, we got our headlines, Schlegs. Giving top news and notes coming up next.
Creative, experience, results. That's what drives growth. That's what builds brands. That's Lake Spur Marketing, a full-service agency built on trust, strategy, and performance, not fluff. From bold strategies to flawless execution, every campaign is rooted in smart planning and driven by clear goals. We don't chase clicks. We build partnerships. We show up, dig in, and deliver every single time. Lake Spur Marketing. The proof is in our partners.
All right, welcome back into the show. We got our headlines, Schlegs, brought to you by our friends over at Lake Spur Marketing. Lake Spur Marketing, full-service agency built on trust, strategy, performance, from their digital ad placement to their broadcast buys to creative and everything in between. Lake Spur, they've got you covered. At Lake Spur Marketing, there's no set it and forget it strategy. All their tactics, they're customized to your needs. Leave the marketing to them so they can let you do what you do best, run your business. Lake Spur Marketing, the proof is in their partners. Visit them at lakespurmarketing.com today. Caden Curry, Schlegs.
Yeah.
Comments after the game. Unbelievable game. 9 tackles, 5 TFLs, 3 sacks. Was named Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week, Schlegs.
Rightly.
So
Rightly
he had
so.
some great comments. Caden Curry and company, Pat, we can throw that up, about what he's all about, what the defensive line's kind of all about after losing 4 seniors that played a ton of ball. I'd like to actually track how many stats they have or starts they have between the 4 guys. I bet it's close to 100, Schlegs, if not over.
Yeah.
And so these guys this year, he had a little term for him of how they're trying to stay hungry, and that's him and K-Mac right there. The other Caden of how they're eating.
This year, just a bunch of no names, and we just go out there and we just try to ball and we try to play as hard as we can. Yeah, I mean, definitely, you love to see the pressure put on you as a defensive line. I feel like our defensive line this year is just a bunch of no names, and we just go out there and we just try to ball and we try.
They're trying to do.
There we go, Schleichs. Just try to ball, try to do something. Caden Curry, play after play after play. Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week. So I think he's finally getting the recognition he deserves. I believe 5 sacks through 4 games, and pretty impressive resume that he's been able to put together.
Yeah, 11 tackles in this game, 9 solo, 3 sacks, 5 TFL. Like, what are we talking about? That's a monster. That's a monster of a game. And, we go back and we talk about the transfers that we brought in and CJ and KJ, and we knew that they were loaded on the defensive end. It was just, how are they going to rotate? Who's going to be it? Look at the weakness of the interior defensive line. And then you have Caden that's been stepping up, and Edric does need to step up, and he will. But, like, Tywan Malone started that game, and I saw Will Smith Jr. in there doing things. And it's like, don't worry about it, because we all knew. Like, it's so funny. I actually had this conversation, Bob, with Jehu, and we were talking about, like, depth, and it goes back to that point. But what Matt Patricia is doing at the line of scrimmage, showing 5 down, they don't know where the safety help is going to be. They don't know who the extra player in the box is going to be. They don't know who the spy is going to be. What it does do, it forces your linebackers to have to get out if they have to do coverage zone with more depth and urgency, because you're showing that front. But it's also like, oh, I have to block this guy, but it leaves you one-on-one for K-Mac on somebody else. That way they just don't see it. They're not just lining up there and saying, oh, it's us 2 on this guy. It's like they're pointing it out, poof, David Copperfield, I'm bailing. What does that do? Cover 3, I got to get my depth. I got to get a sense of urgency, because normally I have a 6 to 7 yard drop. Now I got a 9 to 10 yard drop out of this, right? If I'm showing up at 3 yards. So those things, they all work through in this game, but he's putting them in the positions for them to make plays, and they are very disciplined. And that's how these sacks come. These sacks come because that guy, Damon Williams, keep him in the pocket. Most of the time we want people to get off the spot. No, keep them in the spot. And that's how they're getting this. It's a team game. But Caden's had this mindset, and you and I have both witnessed it, Bob, and how competitive he is every single year. And it's not a surprise to you and me why good things happen to people that go really, really hard.
Absolutely, Schleichs. You love going hard.
Oh, go hard in the paint. I'm always going hard.
Go hard in the paint. I love it.
Right now.
That's it for our headlines. We got our tailgate talk. We answer some of your questions, and another nice little nugget from the game here coming up next on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
Creative, experience, results. That's what drives growth. That's what builds brands. That's Lake Spur Marketing, a full-service agency built on trust, strategy, and performance, not fluff. From bold strategies to flawless execution, every campaign is rooted in smart planning and driven by clear goals. We don't chase clicks. We build partnerships. We show up, dig in, and deliver every single time. Lake Spur Marketing. The proof is in our partners.
All right, Slugs. Now we're into our tailgate talk. We answer your questions. There was a comment that was thrown out in here, and there's a lot of love thrown out at Caden Curry, which is great. He deserves it. Caden McDonald deserves a lot of it as well. There's one talking about Atkinson. I don't know where it went.
It's right here. I got it.
Yeah, we can pull that out.
I'm typing. I'll just say it right here. It's yeah. Hey, agreed, Dunkey. Not so much for Atkinson so far, right? So it's kind of like, I want to bring that up. He was there in the OU game. We saw him have a pressure. I think he did have a sack in that game. But they're rotating guys in, and they're also doing the Rushman package. But there were certain points in that game where you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to bring Caden in to that nose. And guess what? It might be one of those other guys that goes to that nose, and you keep him on the outside. It doesn't matter. It's whatever Larry Johnson wants to do to set his guys up for success to win. And I think this goes back to, guys, we look at it as guys have to be on the field. Ryan Day, and I don't want to play it, Bob, but I'm going to use it because it'll take too much time to get it, and I'm trying to stay on the clock, even though we're already currently over. And it was this. They were talking about JJ's production in the Texas game, and it's like it's not like he played bad or had poor production. He's just unselfish.
Yeah.
And the game had to come as the game came. And it's the same thing with the rotation of the guys. Like, you're not living, coaches don't think, I got to get this guy in. I got to get these guys in. They're just going through what the game is giving them. And how do I set us up as a team and those individual players that are on the field that have success in those moments? That's what they think about. And our guys, again, preparation stops when the foot hits the ball. They are prepared and they're going out and they're playing really, really fast. But the fundamentals, man, of our defense, that's what should get everybody so juicy.
All right. 2 questions that are coming in here. We can throw these up, Pat. From Phil J, question, should Bo Jackson be RB1? Who's to say that he's not RB1 right now?
Exactly.
I mean, the stats are the stats. Bo Jackson, 17 carries, CJ Donaldson, 9, James Peoples, 3. Now you also look at this. You look at touches. James Peoples had 3 catches, so that kind of bumps him up to 6 touches. Bo Jackson 1, CJ Donaldson 1 catch. CJ's was a touchdown as well. But I think Bo has been getting the lion's share of the reps, and CJ will do short yardage. He'll sprinkle James in. He does a good job in getting out. But, with Coach Locke, man, we had him on here. So it's a eat what you kill.
Yeah.
All right? There's no charity in the running back room. Like, you play well, you get yards, you hold on the ball, you block, you run good routes, do everything you need to do, you'll get more.
Yeah.
Not like
you want those stunner cookies, baby.
You learn all that. And then there was one more question that I wanted to, and listen, don't discount Isaiah West. I think is going to be working into the mix at some point, and they're going to try to see what he has to offer. He was a really highly recruited guy. So as he gets back into full playing shape, you feel good where he could maybe be. Phil J, question 2, second question. Where can I find a good place to eat in Champaign in a couple of weeks? Can AJ get me a table like he did for my birthday? LOL. I don't know anything about Champaign. I've only been there and played there one time.
They sell paint there, and as Urban Meyer would said, the only good thing about Champaign is the paint store. It's like, hey, you could be going to this school and then you'll be selling paint. Champaign.
Or the good news, you could be like Schlegs and eat the paint chips, and that'll help you out.
Who doesn't like that?
Crunchy and delicious. All right, that's it. We got take a quick break. We got our side nuggets, parting shots, parting thoughts, all of that coming to you from Anthony Schlegel here after the break.
Creative, experience, results. That's what drives growth. That's what builds brands. That's Lake Spur Marketing, a full-service agency built on trust, strategy, and performance, not fluff. From bold strategies to flawless execution, every campaign is rooted in smart planning and driven by clear goals. We don't chase clicks. We build partnerships. We show up, dig in, and deliver every single time. Lake Spur Marketing. The proof is in our partners.
All right. One other question was in the chat, Schlegs, before we get to your stuff. One of the guys Phil was talking about, Brian West could play over Lorenzo Styles right now. And Bryce West is really talented. But there's reasons why guys are on the field, and I think Ryan said, the guys are on the field. What we see in practice is what we're seeing on the field. And so Bryce is a really good young player.
Yeah, he is.
He's making some strides. Lorenzo's played a lot of college football. And while he may not be as a gifted athlete as Bryce, you got to make sure that everything's locked in and everything fits its way. And Bryce is, very talented kid, and I think he's going to be able to get on the field. I'm super high on Bryce West, but he's got to go do it and take care of business himself. Go for it, Schlegs.
By the way, love Bryce West. Comes in with a smile, chippy, Glenville kid, if I'm not mistaken there.
Yes.
Bob. Anyways, hey, throw up the Ryan Day Grateful, the OSU. Throw that one up there. And I just want and I know there's a lot of you out there that made that track, and Ryan had this to say about it, and it said, it was great for our guys to see some red here. I think anytime you take a young team on the road, it's great to have familiar faces in the crowd, and they had a presence, and that was great. And now throw up the OHIO chant, which honestly surprised, especially when everybody is talking about how loud it was at Husky Stadium. And they had like 5 illegal procedure penalties in the first half on their own offense. Throw that up there. There's a lot of red up there. For a team that's purple and gold, there is a lot of red there. So anyways, hey, shout out. Ryan feels it. The dudes feel it. We feel it. We appreciate
Dudes
you
feeling
guys.
dudes. Yeah.
Dudes feeling dudes and dudettes feeling each other. You know,
Absolutely.
all our Buckeyes. Go Bucks, beat cancer.
All right, that's it for today's show. AJ is confirmed for tomorrow. We will have him back here with you. I mean, apparently he came back to life, even though we saw him dead on the Onion. Maybe we'll throw that back up there for him and just do a side-by-side Schlegs of see who blinks first. Thanks for listening to the show today, watching this. We appreciate it. Excited and locked in, taking it all the way up this week to a big college football Saturday and a nice little night game against the Gophers. Thanks for watching the Bobby Carpenter Show.